Welcome to the You Don't Know What You Don't Know podcast by Innovative Business Advisors. Successful business owners who have started, grown, and led businesses share their journey and direction for the benefit of those traveling the same path.
Today, we're talking with Mitch Meyers, founder of BeLeaf, located here in St. Louis. Born and raised in Southern Illinois, Mitch graduated from SIUE. She originally worked in finance, but migrated over to marketing, where she soon found herself at Anheuser-Busch. While there, she led the launch of Bud Light and introduced the world to Spuds MacKenzie. Following a very successful career at AB, Mitch ventured into the entrepreneurial world with the establishment of Zipatoni Marketing Agency, which she and her partner eventually sold to the Interpublic Group. And by the way, IPG is the 5th largest advertising agency group worldwide. Mitch then devoted herself full-time to her family and moved to Colorado. While there, she became aware of CBD in the cannabis industry, and that started her on a journey to where she is now co-owner of one of Missouri's only vertically integrated grower, manufacturer, and dispenser of cannabis-derived products. Mitch, welcome. We're honored to have you with us here today.
Thank you, Steve. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're very excited to have you. You've had one heck of a career in many different industries.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. And now you are back in Southern Illinois full-time?
Yes, we are. We moved back there after my kids were out of college, and we live in Edwardsville, just across from St. Louis.
Yeah. Fantastic. Wonderful. Well, so tell me about the moment you decided to get into this crazy cannabis business.
So I did not grow up a cannabis kid. It really wasn't in my purview as a young person. But when my kids got to college, they went to Boulder, Colorado. Yeah. It was about the time that medical cannabis had been approved there. And I was fascinated with a brand new industry, starting up. And I started to see stores opening, and I went in and was asking questions. I found my way to a couple of the growers who were really nascent at the time and just getting started. Everyone was so friendly, so welcoming. They would show you how they grew their products or how they manufacture things. And I just thought it was fascinating that an entire industry was springing up, before my eyes. And usually in a lifetime, that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So about the same time, the state of Illinois was looking at a legislative measure to bring in medical cannabis. And it takes a very long time. But they finally got it passed in 2014. And by that time, I had moved back, and I was approached by a few investors to see if I had an interest in participating. And I said I did. I had met a couple of caregivers that were actually treating patients directly. And I was watching them with epilepsy patients, people who had various kinds of cancer, and having great success with a real simple preparation of an oil coming from the cannabis flower. So we put together a team and had to, go find real estate. That was interesting back in 2015 because in Illinois, the Midwest is very conservative. I got thrown out of a few courthouses, and, one place in a small town, there were 200 people that showed up to oppose me for getting a zoning license. And truthfully, by the end of the meeting, I had sold them all on the benefits of it, and they allowed us to apply for a license there. We were fortunate in that we got one license. It happened to be up in the Chicago area, one license for dispensing. So once I got that built out and staffed, I was able to really observe who the patients were, why they were coming, what they were treating. And again, in Illinois, it was very restrictive. There were only 6 very critical, diseases that you could get a med card for at the time. But, what really blew my mind, at one point we had about 1,000 medical patients in our store. And I would say 40% of them were there to detox off opioids.
Wow.
So, cannabis is used for chronic pain a lot. Mm-hmm. It's also good for a lot of other things, and the different terpenes in the plants. I mean, it's a magical plant. I mean, it was put here for a reason. And, we're just now, after 85 years of prohibition, being able to study the plant and all of its, chemical compounds to know, what works on what particular disease state. So that was really exciting and eye-opening for me. And in 2015, the state of Missouri offered 2 licenses to grow, manufacture, and sell CBD oil to epilepsy patients. So I applied for that and got it, and then had to learn how to grow. So I found a cultivator from Denver. He is originally from St. Louis, moved to Colorado to join that industry. And then when he heard that Missouri was opening up, he moved back to be near his family. And I was able to bring him in as my cultivator. So we hired a chemist who helped us figure out how to extract, and get the oil prepared. And we started treating epilepsy patients, which has really been, that has been a stunner for me to see what this simple oil preparation can do to stave off 50 to 300 seizures a day in everything from 5-month-old kids to 97-year-old people that we've treated. So we were really then one of the first operators in cannabis. CBD comes from the cannabis plant, just doesn't have high THC in it. I realized that the state was interested in bringing medical to Missouri. So we worked with an organizing group that I think it was called Show Me Cannabis at the time. And we worked with them and put together a trade association to bring everybody to bear who might participate in this industry. So we brought the business people who wanted to get a license, perhaps. We brought in bankers. I was able to give tours and show them my facility and show them how controlled everything was from seed to sale. We brought in lawyers and policemen, anybody, physicians who were going to have something to say about it, positive or negative. And we were able to give them a look at the display home, we called it, which really benefited, I think, the program in total. But fortunately, we were able to get a medical bill passed in 2018. And after that, the Department of Health has to write up all the rules and regulations, which they did. And then I put together a bigger team of people because it takes quite a bit of money to apply for all these licenses. So we went out and started looking for real estate to get it under control. We were, looking at the financing portion of it. How would we fund this if we did get licenses? And so we applied for the maximum number that one ownership group could own, hoping that we would just get one of each type of license. So having a vertically integrated license is pretty important so that you can grow your own product, you can manufacture the products that you're interested in selling, and then you can retail them through to the customers. So the day they were announcing licenses, our partners are spread out all over the place. We were all on our phones and getting emails from the Department of Health. We ended up getting all of them. We ended up getting all 10.
Wow.
And I tell people it's like the dog that caught the car. I was doing a happy dance for about 60 seconds. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we going to find the money, to fund this? Because per the rules, you had to be open within 12 months. Mm-hmm. They didn't want people applying for licenses and then just trying to resell them. So, that was a good idea, but it was difficult to execute because finding that much money, putting it all together, and it was the start of COVID. So construction really got slowed down with, supply chain issues. But we were fortunate. We got it all up and running. We opened a percentage of our cultivation operations just because in the beginning, you don't need that much product. So now, 2 weeks ago at the election, the people in the state of Missouri voted to approve adult use, which means starting February 7th, you will no longer need a medical card to access cannabis. And that you might think that it's really no big deal. It's not that hard to get them, but people just don't really want to go on record and have a card. A lot of times they feel like, oh, my employer might find out, or I can't buy another gun because if you're filling out a gun application, you don't want to lie about that. So we know that there's probably a 3 to 5x increase in business once we can open to the adult use market in February. So we're a fortunate group.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you're going back through that whole explosion process again, right? With this new opening up in February.
Right. And I tell people, be careful what you apply for. You might get it. You have to execute.
Well, and execution is the key thing. It's, you know, it's not necessarily having the great idea, right? It's about having the great idea and then finding the capital and then actually executing to make it happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I have seen a lot of people fail, people who were well-intentioned, who had access to a lot of capital.
Mhm.
And this is a very difficult industry.
Mhm.
Everybody thinks that, oh, you're in cannabis, you're just getting rich.
Mhm.
I haven't seen a nickel yet. I've invested a lot of time and money, and you hope that on the back end of it, that there's a rainbow, but it is very expensive to be able to put together these cultivation and manufacturing operations because it's extremely controlled. Everything has to be tested coming and going. Everything is on camera. Some of our facilities have 250 security cameras that have to be monitored. And then the on-site security that you have to hire. The amount of people, we're up to about 150 employees at this point, and I'm sure we'll be well over 200 once we're fully staffed for adult use, which is my favorite thing about the industry. Honestly, all the new jobs that are being created, they're good jobs. They have benefits associated with them. There are so many people that love this plant that are so excited to be able to work in the space. We're actually working with St. Louis University, putting together a program that they've been running the last 2 years. And it's been the most successful new program they've launched in many years. They have so many students, which is great for the industry. We need trained staff because, we haven't really had it before. We're finding people moving here from all over the place that have worked in cannabis. But having SLU have a program like that and to be able to, pluck these people out with good experiences, it's great for the industry.
It's phenomenal. I was astounded when I read that. So as I was doing some research on that, that was one of the things that kind of set me back in my chair. And how did you come to even bridge that potential opportunity? I mean, getting SLU, one of the top 25 educational institutions in North America, to agree to put together a program for this industry, this brand new fledgling industry, which, in many regards, people are afraid of because the federal government, still has a heavy degree of control over it, right?
Well, when I first started in 2013, it was a lot worse than it is today. There are so many states that have gone. We've passed up the federal government. We're waiting for them to catch up with us. But, I have just seen such a sea change in people's attitudes. Once they have access to this, people understand. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, if you're religious or not. Once you realize this plant can help people, it's like, why is this being withheld from us? So things have really changed quickly. But prior to us getting all of our licenses, we realized that trained staff was going to be, a huge gap. So our particular team, we had a man who had been in education for many years. And I had met 2 college kids that were just graduating from Ohio State that had created this cannabis school in Ohio, and they were killing it. So I sent this guy that worked for us out to Ohio for 2 days to study what they were doing. And I said, look, we can set this up. We have additional space. We can pull this off. We'll get the cream of the crop, right? The best kids coming into our shop. So he went, studied it. We put together a business plan. And at about the same time, we got our licenses. And I said, you know what? We can't do it all. This isn't our core competency. I don't want to be, splitting hairs here and running 2 different things. And I had met with some SLU research people. They approached me in the CBD space. Unbeknownst to a lot of people, there was a SLU researcher in 1999 who was involved in the discovery of the endocannabinoid system in the human body.
Interesting.
So there's a man in Israel, Raphael Mikolam, who basically mapped the THC strain to understand what was giving us that, that feeling, that high feeling. So we knew that THC was the actual compound that gave you that euphoric effect. We didn't know how it was working within the human body. So we all have an endocannabinoid system. We produce cannabinoids. And when something goes wrong, like when we're out of balance or we have stress or disease is present, that gets out of whack, just like your immune system does. So their researchers were involved in that, and they said, we want to stay involved in cannabis research. So I was working with them with CBD on a Alzheimer's mouse model study that we did just with CBD. So once this school thing, we were going to pass on it, I said, hey, would you guys be interested in doing this? Not thinking that maybe they would, and they jumped on it with both feet. Wow. They have been tremendous. Stacy Godleski is their director. And, they've already got a system that communicates with the whole country on offering these kinds of classes. So they were able to go out and say, we have this new cannabis, instruction. They had hoped to get 35 or 40 students, and I think they've gotten over 400 now. Yeah. And she told me the stats. The youngest student was 19. The oldest was 82. And I think they were in 35 states.
Incredible. Yeah, absolutely amazing. So, it's clear to see what makes your business special and different from others. I mean, you guys, you said it so well when we first started here. You're a brand new industry starting up, really. Complete new industry in the country as a whole. With all the things that you've accomplished in the almost 10 years now. What are you right at 9 years in this thing? What are you most proud of so far?
It's a long
time. What are you most proud of so far?
I think what I'm most proud of is, first of all, the help that we have given so many of our patients. These people are like, you saved our lives. And it's like, I didn't do anything. I was just able to get you the oil or the product. So that, you feel like you're in healthcare. And one of the things that I've recognized in doing this is that, our healthcare system's broken. And people who have these chronic diseases like intractable epilepsy, so many times, their body just starts to attack itself, and they have 3 or 4 other things wrong with them as well. And these parents are so desperate to talk to people who will listen and, who can potentially help them. And in talking to some of these seizure moms, they come in with entire calendars to tell me, Mila had 5 seizures this day, and she had 10 this day. And then we started giving her the oil, and then she had none for 11 days. And then and so, this becomes their life. It overtakes their life. And so when they have someone that will spend time with them, actually talk to them and listen to them, it's so helpful. And I know that our medical system, these doctors just don't have time. And it's like, we'll call the doctor's office. You may not hear back for 2 days. And when you have a child that's having a status grand mal seizure, you can't deal with that. So, that's one thing that I've learned. The other thing I'm really proud of is the number of people that are being employed in the industry, and our staff, and the level of talent and the development that we can give to them, because this industry it's not just happening in the US, it's global. So some of the bigger companies that started many years before us, they may be in a dozen states in the United States. Germany just announced that they're going to go adult use. Europe is starting to open up. So, this is going to be a global industry. There's going to be good jobs associated with it. They're the guys who were growing in the black market in California, the good growers who were illegal for 20 years, are now rock stars in our industries. These guys can make $250,000 a year, and they're getting, poached by people all over the country. So it's just fascinating to me. As I said, when do you ever get to be part of a brand new industry starting up, and you get to be part of, the rules of the road? Like, a lot of things aren't defined for us, and we're having to figure it out on our own, and be part of the history of it.
Mm-hmm. It is fascinating. Having visited one of your stores, I was struck by a couple of things. First and foremost, the attention to detail on the brand was really striking, and I'd love you to talk about that. But I think the thing that was even greater than that was the enthusiasm and knowledge of the staff at the store. I mean, they were all about customer education, and I would ask them a question about something, and you just see them light up and go on about what made that particular product special and different than other things that were laid out there. And they just the fact that you had touched on this earlier, the staff is so committed and so engaged and so knowledgeable about the product. You just don't see that anywhere these days.
Right.
I mean, it's a real difference.
Well, that makes me really proud to hear you say that, because that's what we strive for. And I like to go to our stores myself. We have a lot of new people that are coming and rotating through stores, and, sometimes they may not know me, and I will stand and listen to how they talk to a customer.
Yeah.
I was so amazed the other day. I was at the Cherokee store, and one of our young men was talking to an older gentleman who was a veteran. And they were just getting into the nitty-gritty details about different terpenes that work for him and not. And when the customer left, I went up to him and I said, that knowledge just blows me away, first of all. And, there's no books that teach you that. I said, how are we circulating your knowledge, what you've learned, and other people to the rest of our staff? And he said, I just really listen to my patients. And he said, I have a lot of veterans that come in here, and there are, certain things they can't tolerate. And I really pay attention, and I make notes about it. So, that kind of commitment. And again, these kids know they're really helping these people. And that gives you such a sense of gratitude and, gratefulness that somebody can come back and say, wow, I'm sleeping again, or that pain in my hip is completely gone, and I didn't think anything would touch it, or I'm off benzos. The people that want to be off opioids, I'm happy to see it, because they're so dangerous. And that part makes me angry. Like, why would the government say that we're still federally illegal, but you can get those all day long, that, something that can kill you? So, happy to hear you say that about our staff. We test them every day, and I want our customers to do the same. In terms of the branding and the look and feel of the space, as you said, it still is intimidating. And to an older customer, for sure, I think they feel like they're going to walk into a Cheech and Chong, head shop. Mm-hmm. And my first dispensary up in Chicago was called Nature's Care. Mm-hmm. And I went really out of the way to make sure that people felt very comfortable. There's comfortable seating. You can sit and have a cup of coffee. You can read information about products that we sell. And, we had an open house prior to opening the shop, and all of the local people that lived around us came because they were nervous. They're like, what the hell is going to be going on here? Who's going to show up? And, it was interesting because they sat down on the couch and they said, I feel so comfortable in here. It's so relaxing. People are so nice. And it's like, that's the exact effect that you want to have, in a facility like that. You want it to be welcoming and professional and clean. And you don't want it to look and feel like a doctor's office, but you also don't want it to be, too head shoppy, because that makes people nervous.
Without question. Yeah. And it's, a couple of things. We work with a lot of startups and a lot of small business owners, and you don't get the feel of that when the marketing's done right. But I think the thing you touched on a few minutes ago is so important. I want to restate it. Your employees tend to believe and live the vision and mission of your business. And so many people, when they're starting businesses, we find that they forget that very quickly. They forget what their vision and mission is. They get so busy in the execution that they forget
Right.
the reason for being there. And that doesn't seem to be occurring in your industry.
Right. And it's a special person that wants to work with the plant, and they really believe in it. They believe in its potential, and they want to see it become more mainstream and be accessible. I can't tell you the number of older people, their kids, like I know their kids, and they'll call and say, hey, my mom has Alzheimer's and she's in a nursing home. Is there anything we can give her? And I'm like, these gummies are working great. It helps them sleep, it calms them down. Well, my phone rings off the hook with people wanting help, and they don't know how to go about it. And that's why when it becomes adult use, you don't have that hurdle of having to figure out how to get a medical card. Their kids can just walk in and we can help instruct them on what's going to work for them. One of the other things that I'm really proud of on the branding is we did absolutely everything with local vendors and contractors. And even, we have little wooden benches. It was made by an artist that takes old reclaimed wood down at the Lemp Brewery. We had local artists from each, city area come paint a wall, or at the Grove, the entire front of the facility was done by local artists. Our architects were local, our contractors were local, our, electricians and security. And I know a lot of these bigger companies just brought in resources from Nevada or Colorado that they had used because they knew how to get it done. And we didn't. We were very prideful about using local people for absolutely everything.
That's awesome. I'm sure that's been a blessing to that community as well.
Well, we feel like, they all have relationships and, people that follow their work. And, we got eyeballs on us probably through our suppliers as well.
That's incredible. Well, you've had a lot of success so far, and I know that mixed in there, you've probably had a couple of failures here and there. So share with us, if you will, one or two of the biggest failures you guys had to encounter and what you learned from it and how you had to pivot from it.
Oh, we're going to need more time here. There's a lot. The first one was not anticipating that we could potentially win all those licenses.
Yeah, what a huge thing. You didn't dream big enough. Right?
No, we didn't dream big enough. And I remembered seeing investment decks from other people in the market. They were projecting that they were going to win all those licenses and would need all this money. And I was just shaking my head like, what are you, crazy? Like, that ain't going to happen. So the problem was, once we won all the licenses, we had to change our business plan. We had to, redo all of our pro formas, redo the subscription agreements, and that all took time. So that was the first fail. The second one was, I don't think, because we were always sort of hand in mouth with money. We didn't have a source where we could just go get $60 million, no questions asked. And we're very careful to not overpromise. So we didn't want to ask for any more than we thought we needed. Well, I would recommend to people, ask for twice as much as you think you need because it'll take it. And then the third thing was our equipment. I don't think we right-sized our manufacturing equipment because, again, we thought, wow, do we really need a $250,000 packaging machine? Couldn't we do that, with something smaller and labor? Well, yes, you can. But at the end of the day, once you get to a certain level and a certain scale, it makes more sense to have that more expensive equipment. So we probably spent money on equipment that was too small for us, that we're now having to turn over and buy the bigger stuff. And I think with rec coming, the demand for the products are going to be there, and that will pay for itself quickly.
I'm wondering, and I don't know the answer to this, was financing an issue? I mean, with, I went to the California stores and the Colorado stores a couple of years after it was legalized. And one of the things that struck me was it was solely a cash business, and it's a lot harder to run a cash business. Just finding a bank that would take, all the amount of cash was a challenge for people in Colorado and California when that first started. Has that changed?
Well, again, as cannabis it comes to more states, more banks have gotten braver in putting their toe in the water. I told you when I had the CBD business, I would bring bankers in to show them really how regulated it was. And I had the president of Triad Bank in my office, and he said, this would be the most regulated business I bank. Why wouldn't I do this? And I said, you should do it. And it would be a great, point of difference for you from a marketing standpoint if you get in. So he is an in-state, chartered bank. So it's a little easier for him because they don't cross state lines, but they spent 6 months doing due diligence on how to get it done. And they actually had to change some of their correspondence banks, didn't want to participate. So they had to get different ones that would. But I'm telling you, Triad is banking most of the major players in the state, doing an outstanding job. And their business has really grown as a result of it. And they could not be more excited. Now, we're hopeful, and we heard at a conference last week that Congress potentially will pass the Safe Banking Act between now and the end of the year. And if that happens, it's going to help so many people. All the risk in the system is if you have to deal in cash.
Right.
So, we have never had to from the day we opened. Basically, they have a person that comes by and picks up cash, takes it directly to the Fed, gets deposited in our account. And, it's very easy. We can wire money. We can pay in a check or we can wire. So there isn't a lot of cash setting in any of our locations. We also have a debit card system that people can use in our stores. So we don't end up having a lot of cash in the dispensaries. And I'll be happy when no dispensary has to deal that way.
Yeah, it just makes things so much more difficult, right? Business don't realize, what it would be like in that regard. And
it's a terrible risk. I watched Colorado, and watching those young people having to take all that money and take it to the bank. There's no way I would put anybody on my staff in that position.
The most amazing thing for me was we went to the tax office the day when people would bring in their tax receipts, and people would show up with suitcases full of cash, surrounded by off-duty police officers walking them into the tax office to make their tax payments. It was like the wild, wild west all over again. I'd never seen anything like it before.
Well, and now they charge you a penalty to pay in cash.
Yeah.
Not only do they not allow you to bank, they charge you a 10% penalty to pay them in cash.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it was fascinating when you said that. I know Triad Bank is, to be applauded. They're a real leader in that regard in your industry. But when you're looking at financing and financing equipment and things like that, I mean, are traditional, a lot of small businesses will use SBA financing for up to $5 million. Was the SBA is not even available to you guys?
None of that's available. Bank financing is not available when you're cannabis touching. So it's private equity. We have to go to family offices. Another thing I'm really proud of, our first seed capital investors that weren't, us, like the people that started the company. Were 3 physicians out of Kansas City. My phone rang. I had no idea who they were. They wanted to get involved. They have they're pulmonologists, and they, truly believe in it, and they're happy to be involved. So, it really is, you got to start with family and friends to get going. And then if you get licenses, you reach out to, there are now brokers that are putting together people who have money that want to get involved. A lot of family offices are really going heavy in cannabis. There are other companies that will loan you money, but it is at such punitive rates. I mean, it's 13 to 18%, which with all sorts of covenants on it that you have to maintain so much cash. And sometimes you have to go that route to keep moving. If you're in the middle of construction or you have to build out, a cultivation operation and it has to be open and operational, you have to take those debt commitments, but they're incredibly painful. And it's because banks can't lend. If Safe Harbor passes, banks will be able to lend, and that's going to bring all those payday loan guys' rates down because they're just not going to be able to get it. So that'll be really helpful to the industry. The other punitive thing is something called 280E. So the federal government says, if you are selling something that is illegal, you basically have to pay taxes on everything except your cost of goods. So at my dispensary, for example, if I pay $10 for something and I sell it for $20, I can deduct that $10 cost of goods. I cannot deduct any other normal business expense. So all of my payroll, my rent, my insurance, interest, any other,
all other operating expenses. Yeah.
All my operating expenses are 100% taxable.
Wow.
So, again, people think it's such a highly lucrative business. You really need to look under the hood and understand the business model, to know how you can be profitable at it. And, hopefully, again, if the feds would, basically take it off Schedule 1 or, basically say we're out of regulating cannabis, that 280E should go away. We should be treated like any normal business and be able to deduct our business expenses. That would give everybody a huge boost just immediately.
Yeah, that's a pretty well-kept secret. I didn't know that about the business as well. So
it's painful.
You don't read about it that much. I'm sure it is painful.
And the black market doesn't do any of that. Right. They don't do any of the testing or the security or the 280E business. So, and we compete with the black market. I mean, I heard last week that 80% of all the cannabis sold in this country is still coming from that legacy black market. And 20% is in the newly regulated, industry, which there's 40 states participating. So that shows you what the opportunity is, what the upside opportunity, and all of us our goal is to try to stamp out that black market or reduce it. Because you just don't know if somebody's growing and using pesticides. They don't test their products. We've got a sticker on absolutely everything we sell with the test results on it. So, people, especially people who have medical issues, shouldn't be messing around with the black market, just not knowing what could potentially be in it.
Without question. And things like growing. I mean, we're surrounded by farmland here in the Midwest, right? What I call the Midbest. And but you guys are not growing that way. You're primarily in indoor farming, if you will.
We are indoor farming. And part of that is, we probably have too much humidity in Missouri to be able to grow outdoor capably. I've seen some amazing farms in California and Humboldt County that grow beautiful organic cannabis outside, and it's so much cheaper than the amount of money it takes us to grow. But we can guarantee that we could turn that building 5 times a year. So once you invest in that building, you can get, a pretty highly profitable crop, and you can get a 5 times turn. You just have to make sure that you've got good growers and, you aren't doing anything that's going to harm or kill the yield on those plants.
But it's significantly more expensive up front. I mean, you got to have the building, you got to put in the hydroponics, you got to put in the systems and so forth.
Lights, and then you pay the utilities to have lights on. So absolutely. I mean, the regulated market is going to be a much more expensive product than somebody that's just growing it outside and, putting it in a baggie and shipping it across state lines.
Yeah. So you guys are beyond the startup. You're beginning to operate in this. You've got regulatory hurdles like nobody's business. Even everything that moves in and out of your business, the product, the money, everything has to basically move in and out in a fully controlled scenario, right? Absolutely. I mean, you guys, there's a whole transport system to move product in and out these days.
There is, and there's a whole distribution system. that has to have a manifest. When a van takes off with your product, let's say it's going to stop at 5 different locations, there has to be a manifest on board. The Department of Health has to know what that manifest is. And so if you got stopped by the cops for any reason, you would have that manifest on board. Our delivery vehicles have to have security cameras. There's lots of restrictions on that. I told you the numbers of security cameras that we have. The Department of Health has remote access to those. And we have gotten emails from, some of our DHSS people that will say, hey, you've got a plant that fell down in flower room 2 at Cherokee, and it's blocking the camera. So they're watching. Everybody's watching.
Everybody's watching.
Right.
Boy, talk about living under the microscope.
Right. Well, and then, it's what people don't realize is, once a plant is harvested, let's say you have one cannabis plant and it's harvested, it's got a lot of water weight in it. So that plant has its own unique identifying number, and that's in our computer, and the state knows that, and they come and they do, they check on us from time to time and do audits. So that plant then, when it's hanging to dry, is going to lose about 80% of its weight in water. So each time you touch that plant and it moves to the next stage, it has to be weighed, and you have to enter the water loss, and then you end up with dry material. And then that dry material may go to your manufacturing facility that then is going to get extracted and turned into oil. So all of the record keeping to follow that plant from the time it's a seed into whatever, oil it ends up in, or gummy or chocolate bar, they know exactly where that went. And the whole point of it is diversion, right? They're trying to make sure that we're not diverting half of the material that we have in our facility. But it takes a lot of people and a lot of time. And, we're going through a financial audit right now, and the accountants are having a hard time keeping up with, all of this data entry stuff and, what comes out the end we actually sell.
I can only imagine. I mean, you are really in the big data business then, as I listen to you talk about this.
Yes. And there's a lot of, picks and shovel companies that have sprung up around cannabis. The software companies, the extraction machines. Some of this stuff came out of the pharmaceutical industry, but again, for them, it's all new. It's a brand new marketplace, for them to go. And it's really fascinating. Like once a year, there's this large conference in Las Vegas, and the amount of equipment, that has come online in the last 10 years is really mind blowing, to make something grow faster, or LED lights to, so that it's not as hot and you don't have to use as much utility. Even the utility companies are in the game trying to give, rebates if you use LED equipment. So everybody's jumping in because it's just the new thing.
It is going to be a huge industry. What do you see as the biggest challenges that you guys are facing today, and what do you see in the future as some of the biggest challenges that your industry is going to have to face?
Well, I think what I like to see as states adopt a program is that they go medical first. That if they first have a medical program, and it needs to be limited licenses. So if you look at the state of Missouri, we did a pretty good job of, limiting those licenses. The state of Oklahoma did not.
Okay.
And they probably have 10,000 licensed producers and manufacturers and dispensaries, which is about 9,500 too many. So, that's going to be it's a problem because nobody's making any money. You've got people that are, trying to ship it to another state just to cover the investment they've made, which harms places like us or other states contiguous to them. Texas, I'm sure, is getting a ton of it because they don't have a program. So, those of us in the industry that have invested all this time and treasure want it to grow up. We want it to be legitimate legitimately run businesses. And when you have rogue states like Oklahoma, that's not helpful, because that product's going to end up where it's not supposed to be. And it's going to get somebody in trouble in another state. And it just sets us back in the minds of people that are starting to reconsider. So that's a challenge. Money is always a challenge. As you're growing, it just takes a lot of capital to put these businesses together. Maintaining our staff and keeping a good culture and a knowledge base, like you saw in our dispensaries, making sure that everybody has that enthusiasm and that knowledge to be able to help patients. And these are typical business problems. They're not unique to cannabis. But it's just like every other business. You have to be able to execute well. Then the opportunities are you can either expand to other states on your own, and some people are doing that, or you can look to be acquired. So if you're sitting in a state like Missouri that people feel is a good cannabis market because we have limited licenses, I think there's going to be acquisition offers coming along to people like us.
Yeah, the one thing about private equity and private investment and family offices is they know how to move money around pretty well. They're pretty good at it.
Yes. And, I've just learned that there's a lot of money there. There's a lot of private money that wants to deploy in things like this. In the beginning, I did a lot of speaking to chambers and YPO groups just to get them to understand what it was and to stop being afraid of it and to get them to go out and vote. And, I would run into people that would say, hey, my buddies and I at the country club have a little, fund, and we think we want to get into this. And, you'd spend 4 weeks, kissing the frogs, I would say. And then they'd come back and say, oh, no, my wife wants a condo at the lake, so I'm not going to do it. So I'm like, okay, we've got to step it up and move into one of those family office funds where there's a professional manager. Yes, they want to, be in cannabis, and then we can start the tap dance.
Do you think that I know some of the public companies that are in this space, they've kind of experienced what I call the sawtooth, some ups and downs, if you will. Mm-hmm. As this industry matures, you must be very confident you're going to be able to get your money out. Do you think that this is going to find an appropriate level where returns will normalize and people will be able to see, not that the enthusiasm comes out, but it right now it's kind of viewed as very speculative and very, potential for very high returns. Do you think it's going to kind of normalize a little bit and get into basically, normal ranges of returns?
What hasn't helped any of us is the fact that these companies could go public on the Canadian exchange.
Right.
And I understand why they did it. They needed capital to expand. They were trying to, Cresco Labs started in Illinois with me. I mean, they were not in cannabis before that, but they had access to capital pretty quickly. And so they got set up in Illinois, did a really good job. Then they started moving and acquiring in other states or applying for licenses. And, if you have to have a war chest basically to go that fast. Yeah. So they went public on the Canadian exchange because the US stock exchange wouldn't allow it. And so they end up with this big war chest. Well, now they have to quarterly, say, what is your top line revenue? So they were just gobbling up companies. And the problem was they weren't able to get companies that were well run and had great employees and a deep bench. These were all people just trying to get up and operational. So they ended up with, 10 states of like broken toys. Mm-hmm. And then and they've got a New York office is expensive, and they've got board members they're paying a lot of money for. And, they just kind of acted like big shots way too soon. And some of them have done okay. Others just really blew it, in my opinion. Like they blew too much money, and the stock prices went crazy in the beginning. It was like crypto. Like everybody's like, oh, I just got to get some. So it was way too hot, and then it fell back to a normal rate. Well, this past year, stock prices have been punished overall, and cannabis is even more so because it's, a heavily regulated market.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see it, if safe banking would pass, I think you're going to see those stock shares in the well-run companies come back up. And again, I think they're moving offshore. I think they're looking to, Mexico or South America or Germany, to start planting some flags. If the US stock market would take some of this business, I think that you'll see, a huge influx again.
Yeah, because we are the world's capital market, no doubt about it. Yeah. So it'll get there.
It will. It's still nascent. I mean, this is early days in cannabis for sure.
Absolutely. And to be vertically integrated, I mean, that's a choice as well. I mean, for me, it seems like, you've got a very complicated business when you think about,
Yes.
growing, distribution, the whole ball of wax. It's manufacturing. You guys have got to be masters of many games in order to do well.
That's right. I mean, it is great being vertically integrated because, when you first open, you have product to supply yourself, and the people who didn't it's awful. And you're going to see it again in February when we go rec. There's going to be such demand for the product that a lot of these little independent dispensaries that aren't associated with cultivation are going to be out of product in, a matter of days. And then you're sitting there waiting, and you don't want to lose your customers to another dispensary.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's nervous. Our phone is ringing with a lot of independents wanting to make sure that they can get supply when they need it. So, that makes us nervous. We got to go get more money and build more capacity. It's all good problems to have, but.
Well, it's got to be interesting because I'm sitting here thinking that, you are widely recognized as a marketing genius, and you've done some things that few people in marketing have done over the years. And now here you are in a business that you can't pull a lot of the traditional marketing levers. You've got to do things, much differently than you did in the past. It's got to be a fascinating journey to be on.
It is, but honestly, I think with that being my wheelhouse, people who do go into our stores say, what you said, how the brand is very strong and just the feel that you get. Not everybody spent that kind of time and attention, but I know that for the long haul, you can ultimately get there, but if you start there and stay true to your word, it's got a lot more power. And the fact that we can't use a lot of the normal marketing tools, you have to be more creative. One of the things that gives us a good reputation is the quality of our products.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's interesting in that you would think, well, cannabis flower is cannabis flower. It is not. And we have prided ourselves in having great, careful growers that know what they're doing. And we get that feedback. There's this social media Reddit channel that you will know in a New York second if you've got a good strain on your hands or a bad strain. They let you have it if they don't like something or, they think that, the quality isn't there for the price. So all of that is part of marketing. And, we are fortunate that we have a great team that's, putting out quality product all the time.
Well, Mitch, born and raised on a farm, right, in the farming community. And
yes.
Here you are, back in many regards in the farming business in that. And
I always say my grandfather would be so proud of me.
I'll bet. It's fascinating. And ultimately, do you guys think about, you think BeLeaf will become a public company? You think that's where you guys are ultimately headed?
I don't think public. We may expand if there's other states in the Southeast that are similar to, our market. Like, we're not going to go jump into New York and fight for, something there, or New Jersey. But, there are still some states in the Southeast that would be worth participating in. Texas is obviously, a jewel that everybody's looking at because it's just such a big state. But, we really are trying. A lot of people ask us this, especially people that are going to invest. What is the exit strategy here? Like, what are you planning to do? And we are building a company to last. And whether that's under our ownership or someone else's, we realize how important it is that if a bigger entity comes to buy us, we still have to be self-sustaining. We still have to make sure we're low-cost producers, that we're profitable, that our staff is all, operating under the same strict SOPs. So we're building a company to last, whether it's just for the BeLeaf company or it's for someone else, to pluck us out and make us part of a bigger organization.
I love it. Building a company to last. That's phenomenal. Well, you certainly have got a brand that is definitely got a unique identity and is very easy to see. And the quality of the product, as you spoke to earlier, is certainly going to help guarantee its future.
Have you been to the Suede dispensary on Delmar?
I have not yet. No.
So that's one we're really proud of. It was a historical church that was literally for the past 15 years. The roof had fallen in. There were homeless people living in it. It was disastrous. So when we got the license on Delmar, we approached Joe, and he was willing to invest in the structure, the white box, to bring it back. Now, working on a historical building was new for me. So we had to get approval from the State Historical Society and the Federal Historical Society. I call them Hysterical Society. So when we said we're going to put a cannabis dispensary in this church, it was pretty funny, but it is stunning. It has been completely rebuilt. New roof, all new tuck pointing on the brick, new stained glass window. And it is just such a beautiful structure. And the upstairs, we have the whole first floor. The upstairs is, the big vaulted ceiling. And, we have an option on that space that if we wanted to create an event space, we could. And being right across the street from the pageant, we have a lot of people that come. Chris Rock showed up like a month ago, showed up because he was touring there. So, it's each location is different, but, and it has the same look and feel, but, we think that's a really special one.
I will definitely make a trip down there to see that. So I get down there quite often. So I'll go take a look.
Good.
Outstanding. Well, if people would like to learn more, where would you direct them to go?
I would say Suede Cannabis, SWADE cannabis.com. That is our retail locations. Excellent. And then BeLeaf Co., if anybody's interested in work, we've always got positions open. BeLeafco.com. You'll find open positions on our website.
And that's for all divisions for the dispensary?
It is for all divisions. Yes. BeLeaf is the parent company.
Yeah.
And each of our entities have their own branding. So BeLeaf Company is the parent organization.
Do you guys expect BeLeaf to be statewide?
So you can only the same ownership group can only have 5 dispensaries. Well, I guess under the adult use, we could have more than that. So there would be an interest in adding, more retail, but we sell wholesale. So all of our products are sold throughout the state. And there's right now about 200 dispensaries, and there'll probably be another 150 or so added over the next couple of years. So yes, we like having our products in everyone else's dispensary as well. And
can you sell across state lines to other dispensaries in other states?
No, that's where the feds come in and say, unless they would permit that, which we don't think they will, because if they did that, Philip Morris is just going to come dump down in Southern Illinois, and they'll supply it for the whole country. And we're all kind of hopeful that doesn't happen in our lifetimes. I mean, it ultimately will. I think you're going to see probably two different paths that cannabis takes. One will be a strictly pharmaceutical path because they're sharpening their knives to get in. They know it works. And then you're going to see a recreational path where you will have the cigarette companies, alcohol, tobacco, that will get in. So this is kind of a nice period of time where mom and pops can participate. We had this just charming couple on the western side of the state that had been pharmacists for many years. And, independent pharmacies are really struggling. So they decided to apply for a cannabis license for retail, and they got it. And, just love, again, they're working with patients, but they love the opportunity. And I'm happy that, right now, mom and pops have the opportunity.
Yeah, the old formularies were really the hub of a city in the day.
Yes.
Yeah, phenomenal. Well, Mitch, again, we're just honored to have you. It's a fascinating business. It's fascinating to talk with you about this business. It's amazing the challenges that you guys are facing, and you're doing it so well. It really is coming off beautifully. So
thanks. And I would just encourage any of your listeners to, stop in, even though you don't have a medical card now. I mean, if you are interested in getting a medical card, stop by any of our dispensaries and they'll show you how to do it. If you don't, you want to wait for adult use, just stop in anyway, and they can give you details. You can see, where you're going to be able to go in a couple of months, and, get to know people.
Outstanding. Well, listen, thank you very much for making the time. It's been an honor and a privilege to talk with you, and we wish you guys all the best as you continue to grow and flourish in this community.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Outstanding.
Thank you for listening to the You Don't Know What You Don't Know podcast. We invite you to visit www.youdon'tknowwhatyoudon'tknow.com and sign up to receive updates on upcoming episodes. You can also let us know if you'd like to be a guest or recommend a business owner to be interviewed. Find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, where you can like, follow, share, and join our efforts. Thanks for listening. We hope you join us again.